to this revision lesson on Afro Celt Sound Systems release. This is the first of 3 lessons, and this short video aims to take you through the absolute basics of the piece. So we'll look at release itself, the background and context of the band and their fusion style. We'll look at the resources, that's the instruments used in the track, and there is a 3-task menu in Google Classrooms based on writing, listening and watching the video. So the band itself, Afro Celt Sound Systems, second album, Volume 2 release, came out in 1999. It was produced by Real World Records, which specialises in world music, particularly founded by Peter Gabriel, very famous musician in the 80s, and it rose to number 6 in the top world album charts and sold more than 200,000 copies. Our set work is the album's title, Release, and a number of remix versions have come out since the track's debut. So the band itself, Afro Celt Sound System, was formed in 1995 by the guitarist Simon Emerson, and the name represents the origin of the fusion music they create. Here is one of the most important parts of this particular set work. It's the name of the band representing the styles of music that the fusion uses. So, first of all, Afro, and that's specifically the sounds of West African music. Then Celt, the sounds of Irish traditional folk music, and then sound system, everything to do with EDM. Remembering that ACSS themselves particularly like this EDM phrase, electronic dance music. So, in summary, West African music is Afro, Irish traditional music Celt, and then dance music sound system. And that makes Afro Celt Sound System, and that's the core and the heart of this particular set work. The song is a tribute to keyboard player Jonas Bruce, who was one of the original founding members of Afro Celt Sound System. He died at the age of 28 from a massive asthma attack in 1997, which is only 1 year after the release of the band's very first album. The story of the song, of Release, is imagining that Bruce himself, as like a spirit, like a ghost, is telling the band that he's still with them in spirit, they should be happy for him, and they should certainly carry on making their music and being successful. Verses 1 and 3 are sung in English by Sinead O'Connor, another famous Irish musician at the time, who wrote the lyrics. And the use of 3 languages being sung in the song, so that's African, English and Irish, also represent the triple roots of Afro Celt Sound System style. So we keep going back to this fusion idea of the 3 styles of music. So if we look at the resources, remembering ACSS, when they talk about resources, they mean the instruments. So we have the Uilleann pipes, which are a style of Irish bagpipes. We have a hurdy-gurdy, which is much like a mechanical violin. An accordion, which is like a blow keyboard. It's bellows that create wind, and you play with buttons or keys. Then we have a low whistle, which is a new instrument in traditional Irish folk music, and it makes a sound a bit like a recorder or a very low flute, but quite deep in its range. Then we have the bodhran, which is an Irish handmade drum, and then a fiddle, which is the folk musician's name for a violin. Then we go to West African instruments, so that's a kora, which is a West African harp between 7 to 21 strings. And then a djembe, which you're probably very familiar with perhaps maybe back from primary school, and obviously we have some here, you may have some here as well. So goat skin headed drum, which is held in place by ropes, and you play it with your bare hands. We also have a talking drum, which is an hourglass shaped drum, and the ropes around the edge of the drum you squeeze them with under your arm, and it alters the pitch, and it's supposed to imitate the sound of speech in West African culture. Then we have obviously the electronic dance music stuff, the EDM music, which is male and female vocals. There's lots of synthesizers and samplers, electric pianos, drum machines, and digital sound effects. And there's the start of the task menu. So have a listen to the beats and see if you can go through the elements of music, listening for use of dynamics, instrumentation, texture, tempo, the sounds, the loops. This piece has lots of loops going on. So there are your 3 task menu. There is of course, and it's called Revises, bespoke podcast for you to listen to, and you can also watch the music video that the band themselves have released, which will give you an idea of the feel of the song. Hello again. So here is a summary of lesson 2 of the 3 lessons on Release by Afro Celt Sound System. What is one of the most important things to know about Release and Afro Celt Sound System? Clue, hint, it's to do with the fusion style. So in this lesson we'll continue with structure, melody, texture, tonality, harmony, meter, tempo and rhythm. So essentially that's all of the elements of music to do with Afro, Celt, sound systems release. And then in your own time you can continue to look at the three task menu. So the structure is no surprising as it's a song. It's made because it has 7 sections, mainly constructed from 8-bar phrases. So we have introduction, again not a huge surprise, a verse, a second verse, and a solo section. Think about the nature of those instruments involved. A verse 3, then a build, then an outro. So no specific chorus, but a series of verses with instrumental sections. So verse 1 is sung in English by Sinead O'Connor and contains 3 similar standards, which are labelled 1, 2 and 3 in the anthology. And then we have some Irish lyrics. I won't attempt to pronounce the names here. The musical phrases are similar to verse 1, but followed by a further entry from the male vocalists. So the melody, the tune, the melody is based on the Aeolian mode, which you're most familiar with, sounding like this. So the Aeolian mode is essentially A to A. So I'm just playing all the white notes from A to A. But what Release do with it, they've moved this up, but it's now starting on the note C. So the relationships of the pitches, the tones and semitones are the same, but we transpose it to C and it sounds like this. Sometimes the A flat becomes an A natural. It is an A natural. Here it is back as an A flat. The female vocal part in Release has a narrow range. Wait for the bell to go. So the female part in Release has a narrow range, again much like folk music which is sung by amateurs. It's a span of a 6, so here's a 6, and it's down low. Yeah? So using the bottom part of the range for most women. The range of the male vocalist is greater, spanning a 10th, so here's a 10th. There's a male vocalist, take it down here. And the melody of the first verse uses just the 5 pitches of the pentatonic scale on C. Here they are. C, E flat, F, G, B flat. The vocal melody of verse 1 is repetitive, but being made up from 4 similar 2-bar phrases. Each starts on the note G. Here we go. Ends on C, 5 notes lower. So here's a C, we do it in a minor tonality. So the complete 8-bar section is sung 3 times with small changes in lyrics. This creates a hypnotic effect by the 12 interactions of the falling pattern, which ends on G rather than C. So there's lots of this C to G relationship. And the movement with the phrase is mainly conjunct, so that's next door notes that go up and down by step. Obviously there are occasional small leaps, a minor third. Here it is. So Sinead O'Connor's introductory vocal solo, which starts in 1 minute 19 seconds in, is based on the falling pattern of verse 1. In verse 2, the male vocal tune progressively rises to a top C, before falling a tone to finish on a C at the very end of the solo. So we go falling a tone, that kind of thing. And the faster moving instrumental melodies in the 2 solos are more wide ranging in pitch and include more disjunct movement, but they also emphasise once again the G and the C. Texture is relatively straightforward, mainly homophonic, mainly tuned accompaniment, and the accompaniment features as a layered texture, another important feature of this piece. So we can move our homophonic answer to a potential question about texture into, particularly if there are more marks available, features as it's layered, which creates from the 28 loops which are printed in the anthology score. This piece has a lot of loops, it's created from a series of loops. The Tonality of release can be described as modal, the Aeolian mode, don't forget starting with C. There are no modulations or key changes within the piece. Harmony has a slow harmonic pace and is mainly diatonic, mainly within a key. Without the notes B natural, it can't really be described as being C minor, but it's anchored to C by lots of drones and hypnotically repeating patterns based on the chord of C minor. And the revision book in the anthology give you some of these examples. So Luke 15. So notice all of those chords have a C in it. So C and G, and then again G moves to A flat, repeats, moves to A natural, repeats, slides up by semitone to B. And then Luke 16 has again a C all the way through and the top changes. So the top two notes. So G and B flat, C doesn't move, F and A, E flat and G, and then just E by itself. If I resound the C, so you keep hearing it. So meter, tempo and rhythm wise, the opening section is in free time, it kind of builds the atmosphere. When the loops start 48 seconds in, there's a moderately fast tempo in 4/4. We have lots of Irish drum, the bodhran, and loop 1 is a feature. The instrumental solos and some of the instrumental loop feature strings of rapid short notes echoing the fast style of much Irish music, triplets on the low whistle and fiddle loops. Our repeating loops create the effects of ostinato, remembering ostinato is short repeated pattern. In popular music you can also talk about riffs. Ostinatos and riffs are essentially the same thing. Ostinato is the more generic one and the sort of more classically trained one, and then riffs. But riff is also a short repeated pattern used in pop music or this kind of fusion music. And the texture is created by a superimposition of rhythms described as polyrhythmic. Be careful, we've got homophonic as a texture, we've got layered as a texture, we have polyrhythmic. So if the question is particularly about rhythm and texture, you can use polyrhythmic as an answer. Remember, poly meaning many, thinking about things like many-sided shape as a polygon, that kind of thing. So polyrhythmic, literally many rhythms. And the task menu continues from last time. Here is the third of 3 lessons based on Release by Afro Celt sound system. And this lesson you can watch the video I'm currently making now. It will be up on YouTube available for you fairly shortly. And we'll go through a commentary. So that's what happens where of the entire piece based on each element of the structure. So, in the introduction, we've got the timings. You'll see this much clearly in your Google Classroom version of this PowerPoint. So in the introduction we have synth drones with electronic effects. So lots of sort of low noises happening down the bottom of the texture. We have the talking drum. We have the softly spoken West African introduction. Then we have the introduction of the bodhran and the shaker, that's loops 1 and 2. Hi-hats loop 3, and then female introductory phrases, synthesizers, loop 4, drums, loop 5. Verse 1, more female vocals, more drums, and then adding tambourine. Talking drum, loop 8. Then we've got the chorus, loop 9, synth strings, loop 10, enter softly. The voice stop, the voice that stops, and the soft pad of loop 11 and bass and breath samples are introduced, creating a short instrumental break. Verse 2, the male vocalist now prominently featured, and the drums, loop 14. Have the fiddle, don't forget fiddle is folk music speak for a violin. Played very quietly, double stopping. Double stopping is the idea of playing 2 notes at once. Happens on stringed instruments, violins, cellos, violas, double basses. But in this case, talk about fiddle, which is a violin. And the bass drops out at the end. Then we go into the solo section. So we feature first the U-loop pipes, joined by a low whistle, which is played an octave higher. Then we have the synthesizer, which is loop 16, accordion, loop 17, and the other accompanying loops. So we have low whistle, bodhran, loop 18, synth string to loop 10. These are the prominent sounds in a generally lighter accompaniment. Then the male vocal loop comes in, that's loop 19. Accordion, loop 20 with a synth pad. Then we're into talking drums, bodhran, male vocal sample. So the texture's quite thick here and they're quite prominent. And then the final part of the solo section, we've got the hurdy-gurdy solo, number 20, synth pad, 21, drums and percussion and male vocalist, 19, are also prominent in a very, very busy mix at this point, so the texture is quite layered, all those loops are coming in. Remember, this piece is based on a series of loops. You can see we've got 21 loops here. Female vocal at the start of verse 3, whilst the hurdy-gurdy continues. The Union pipes, the third stanza. Male vocal enters with a prominent fiddle part, loop 23. Bass, full silence. And the section ends in one bar, quadra and a shaker, to prepare us for the next section, which is a build. We have a long crescendo, things gradually getting louder, and the thickening of the texture. Then we have the build section, so drum breaks, loop 24, bass 20, loop 12, and then the drum loops continue. Electric piano 1 and 2 join in, hurdy-gurdy, then loop 27. Piano loops, female vocal loops, added isolated background notes, and medium pipes, loop 28, and then features in the mix as the female vocal before. And we go through to the very end of the piece now, where we go to an outroduction. Remember, outro, coda. Outroduction, not really a proper word, but in pop music it's fine, or this kind of music is fine. So the female vocal reach out and you'll touch me is accompanied by drums, percussion, synth, fiddle loops, and the last of which is the most prominent section. And the whole thing fades out and it has a featured electric piano loops in bar 25. Sorry, in loops, not bar, in loops 25 and loops 26. So there is the full structure of release and the main features of each of those sections. Obviously you've got timing so you can listen along with the track. Can't put the track on YouTube, I'm afraid, because the algorithms recognise it's me not having the copyright, so you have to listen to that one for yourself. So there is the complete commentary. And finally, the task menu in Google Classrooms continue. Don't forget, of course, Mr. Crawley provides this podcast. All these things created for you right now. In this final part of this video about Afro-Celt Sound System's release, we'll look at some typical exam questions on the piece. So Section A questions from recent past papers have included the idea of playing you two extracts, an extract A and an extract B, where extract A is early in the piece and extract B is often a bit later on. This is a typical Edexcel favourite question, comparing two bits of the same piece. So you might get a question about rhythm, where you're given 4 choices of rhythm to choose from. So there might be an A, B, and C, and a D. And you have to choose the correct one. Then other questions are things like name the musical device played by the bodhrán. So that's possibly things like ostinato or riff. 2 similarities between extract A and extract B. You should refer to musical elements. I'll just say that again. You should refer to musical elements. So when you answer your question, 2 marks available. Make sure you're talking about things like pitch, things like rhythm, texture. Dynamics is always a bit of an iffy one, but things like texture, rhythm, tempo, tonality, meter, those kind of things. Identify an instrument that's heard in one extract and not the other one. So in this case it's extract B, but not in extract A. Then a final question. These extracts combine elements of African and Irish music. Apart from instrumentation, so not instrumentation, identify 2 African musical features heard in either of these extracts. So that is linking back to the nature of the track and the nature of the band. Afro, Celt, sound system. So we're focusing here on the West African, the Afro bit, West African music. So identify 2 African musical features heard in either of these extracts, but not instrumentation. 2019 paper didn't have a Section A question on release, but had an absolute stinker, thank you Edexcel, on the Section B question. So the 12-mark essay was inviting you to compare Afro-Celt sound system to Punjabi MC, and it was about instrumentation and music technology. Really quite a difficult question, because the Punjabi MC piece is based on an 1980s TV program called Knight Rider. I think that put anybody that's studying this piece in 2019 as a huge disadvantage. However, you were expected to answer the question, so this was the Section B question, the 12-mark essay question. So, the question was, and I'm going to quote exactly, these 2 songs fuse musical features from popular music with musical features from different cultures. And the 2 songs being Punjabi MC, which was the extract B, unfamiliar extract, and then comparing to the piece you know, which is Afro Celt Sound Systems Release. So these two songs fuse musical features from popular music with musical features from different cultures. Evaluate, an important word in that sentence, evaluate how effectively Afro Celt Sound System and Punjabi MC use instrumentation and music technology to create these fusion songs. So I think the key here was the fact, okay, the Punjabi MC piece is based on something which is very old by today's standards, very, very unfamiliar, I would think, in its original form certainly, but to focus on instrumentation, so the world music instruments used and the elements of electronic dance music, EDM, and the music technology. So you can find your way through the question, I think, just about by focusing your answers on those questions. You're of course provided with a skeleton score in the source booklet, and then the final part of the question, you should use your knowledge of musical elements, context and language in your response, and language in your response. There's a clue there as well. And that was the section B 12 mark question from 2019. I won't go through the answers because I'm likely to want to use it in the future. Then some more generic section A type questions might include playing you an extract 3 times, a particular part of the song, then naming an instrument, playing the opening solo. So knowing your instruments, I think, is an important one for this, particularly as it's, it takes in all those world music styles. Next question, describe 3 musical features of the opening solo. That's quite a broad question, but 3 musical features. So musical words, musical vocabulary being asked for here, and I would think a link to the elements of music. And in this one I'm looking at, there are 6 marks available for 3 musical features, so you need to be making 2 points per question. And then a final question might be the mood, and quite a generic final question actually I have to say. The mood of this extract could be described as dreamy or melancholic. Give 3 musical features once again that helps achieve these moods. Those kind of questions might seem quite nice, but they're quite broad and they're quite vague actually, so you need to make sure your answers do quote specific things, do refer to specific things. Musical features, so looking for elements of music as well as some of the devices like ostinato, riffs, loops, those kind of things. So there are some questions, past paper questions on Afro Celt Sound Systems Release. Thank you for watching this tutorial video.